Triumphs of Caesar. The morning of September 21, 46 BC was a day of celebration for the citizens of Rome. A general was about to claim the highest honor a Roman could receive. A triumph, a spectacular celebration in which Rome generals parade through the streets, flaunting prisoners of war and spoils of victory. This day promised to be like none other before it. Today was the first of four triumphs, all held to honor the same man, Julius Caesar. Over the next 2 weeks, Rome would look forward to 3 more great parades. Caesar's triumphs were exceptional not only for their impressive expense and grand scale, but also for the act that he was the only person in Roman history to receive 4. One for each of his victorious campaigns. By celebrating Caesar, Rome was also celebrating itself, because this general had enlarged and enriched the public like no other man before him. The one who came close was Caesar's ally, turned rival, Pompey the Great. He had received 3 triumphs, although past triumphs were not the focus of Caesar's plans. They had set a high bar, which Caesar was set to overcome with great flair. Sacred rituals. In the Roman Republic, generals requested triumphs, but it was the Senate that granted them. Only if a victory met a series of conditions. The win had to be a major battle, with a minimum of 500 enemy casualties, that ended the war, while the Senate deliberated. The general would wait outside the city gates. If he failed to qualify for a full-blown triumph, he would be granted an ovation, a slightly lesser celebration. When triumphs were granted, a grand procession was held throughout the streets of Rome. Details varied over the centuries, but typically the festivals would last over an entire day. The parade followed a sacred route through the city. Starting at the gate, politicians would proceed at first, often followed by musicians and entertainers. Prisoners of war were paraded before Rome, as well as the plunder gained through the victory. For the grand finale, the general and his soldiers would march as the crowd cheered them on. The sense of honor was overwhelming in a city that viewed monarchs with distrust. The general would be able to be king for the day, dressed in royal purple, and he would ride in a carriage drawn by 4 horses. In his hands he would hold an ivory scepter, and on his head was both a wreath and a golden crown held by a slave, who was also given the task to whisper into the general's ear, reminding him of his mortality. Alexander in India. In 328 BC, Alexander the Great, at age 26, had a choice to make. After defeating Darius III of Persia and later crushing a rebellion by the Sogdian leader Spidamenes, the entire expand of the former Achaemenid Empire now belonged to Alexander. He controlled the territory stretching from modern-day Turkey to Mesopotamia to the Iranian plateau and the Oxus and Jakartan River basins, nearly 2 million square miles. But would the great military leader be content to rule these lands, or would he try to expand his kingdom? Beyond the Hindu Kush lay India, a land that the Greek knew about more from legend than experience. In the past, Persian kings had attempted to impose their law in the nearest parts of the land, the east of Afghanistan, Pakistan, and the Indus Valley. However, the governors or satraps installed there failed to establish control over people fiercely protective of their independence. Alexander yearned to advance farther than the great Achaemenid kings by marching into these mystery lands. Mythical Greek gods and heroes such as Dionys and Hercules set foot there in legend, but no mere mortal had followed them. Determination to conquer the known world drove him forward to India. Alexander's campaign seemed unstoppable at first. He advanced into the foothills of the Hindu Kush within just a few weeks, taking villages and cities in the face of strong resistance. After crossing the Indus and defeating the Indian king Porus at the Battle of the Oedipus, Alexander moved forward the Genghis Valley, determined to conquer the entire India subcontinent, but where he reached the Oedipus River, his soldiers revolted. 8 months of fighting had exhausted them, and they refused to go any further. Alexander was forced to give up to return his forces to Mesopotamia. Over time, the territory he had gained would slip back under local control. Brave New World. In Alexander's time, the Macedonian soldiers encountered a completely foreign land, unlike any they had seen before. After crossing the snow-capped mountains of the Hindu Kush and having braved and ranged terrifying ravens, the expedition entered the Indus Basin. The river impressed them with its size, 6 miles wide, according to surviving accountants. Its violent whirlpools, defending roars, spectacular floods, and lurking crocodiles were all compared to the Nile and Egypt. When he saw the Indus, and before he discovered that it flowed into the ocean, Alexander himself speculated that the Indus couldn't be the source of the Nile due to the similarities between the two rivers. Fierce creatures. The variety and richness of India's wildlife was also a revelation to the Greek invaders. They recorded with tigers, parrots, and rhinoceroses. They saw different kinds of apes, some so large that when the Macedonian troops saw them from a distance, from high in the mountains, they mistake them for a massed rank of an army on the march. Genghis Khan. Circa 1167, Temujin was born into a noble family, but his father's murder plunges him into destitution. He must survive by his wits. 1206, after decades of warfare, Temujin unites the tribes under his command. He is given the title Genghis Khan, or Universal Ruler. 1209, the Mongols defeat the kingdom Shishia in northwestern China. It is ruled by the Tangut, who become Mongol vassals. 1219, Genghis Khan attacks the Khwarezmian Empire. After the ambassadors he sent to the court of Muhammad are killed, 1227, the Great Khan dies, possibly from injuries he suffered in a fall. Injuries suffered in a fall from a resting place remains a mystery. The explosive Mongol expansion of the early 23rd century seems hard to explain at first. It's true that nomadic herders were formidable warriors. Their lifestyle had made them excellent horsemen. The archers, while exposure to harsh climate had ensured them to the deprivation of military life. However, no other nomadic steppe people ever proven anywhere near as successful as the Mongols, nor did the Mongol army enjoy any significant technological advantage over their predecessors. In fact, their principal weapon, the small but powerful composite bow, was only a minor improvement on the bows used by the Scythians more than 2,000 years earlier. There was also nothing new in the way the Mongol army was organized. A system adopted by Mongolia's Sino Empire in the 3rd century BC and used by many nomadic people ever since. The one device element that set the Mongols apart is the figure of Genghis Khan. Born Temujin Genghis Khan, the title given to him in 12,006 means universal ruler, was undoubtedly one of the best generals of his time and rightly considered to be one of the greatest military leaders ever. He is a towering historical figure whose personal charisma, courage, determination, intelligence, cunning, and ruthlessness a long way to explaining the phenomenal and far-reaching success of his army. The Khan's horsemen. Genghis Khan's horsemen. The Mongol army was made up almost entirely of mounted archers. These were far superior and formed the bulk of armies that the Mongols preyed upon. The horse and archer combination delivered the achievements of speed, mobility, and range. It was also perfect for their preferred tactics. The Mongols would pretend to flee, inclining the enemy to break formation and chase them. Suddenly they'd stop, sometimes in a pre-planned spot, regroup, and turn to attack their disorganized pursuers, putting cities to the sword. The Mongols' brutal methods of warfare certainly had terrible human costs, but much has likely been exaggerated. Claims that 1,300,000 people were killed in the city of Merver, not credible. The most gruesome anecdotes are also probably false, such as the tale that when Genghis Khan heard of a noble woman who had swallowed her pearls to hide them, he ordered his men to disembowel all the corpse in search of other hidden valuables.